In Brazil, a series of explosions at a grain silo claims at least 8 lives.
Authorities are still tracing the source of the blast. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Marcos administration highlights Industry 4.0 towards thriving Philippine economy. Typhoon Doksuri lashes China after leaving damages to the Philippines. Pyongyang parades its new nuclear drones and missiles. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky files for a martial law extension. And White House rules out presidential pardon for Hunter Biden. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. highlights the importance of establishing responsible business conduct standards to support growth and development in the Asia-Pacific region. Christina Gira tells us more.
The last time I spoke before this audience at the APEC CEO Summit in Bangkok last year, I highlighted the need to accelerate our efforts to address structural and policy issues with a view to enabling rapid economic recovery and growth in a swift and sustained manner that creates jobs, draws more people into the mainstream economy, and reduces poverty and inequality.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. made these remarks during the opening ceremony of the Third Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, or APEC, Business Advisory Council meeting in Cebu City. The President emphasized the significance of digitalization and innovation in facilitating regional economic integration, ensuring an inclusive and sustainable transition. He also mentioned opportunities arising from Industry 4.0, or the imminent Fourth Industrial Revolution, and the clean economy transition that APEC members can seize. The President reported on the Philippines' initiatives to capture these opportunities while supporting the development of micro, small, and medium enterprises. He commended the Philippines for hosting the event and urged APEC members to leverage available tools to achieve their agenda.
On our end, we have to set up roadmaps to ensure that we capture these opportunities while addressing the concomitant challenges. Establishing a dynamic and innovative ecosystem is one of the cross-cutting strategies in our transformation agenda.
Christina Gira reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
On behalf of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin signs Executive Order Number 36. The EO aims to resolve disputes between independent power producers, or IPPs, and local government units, or LGUs. Disputes regarding real property taxes on power-generating facilities within their localities will be addressed by the EO. Some LGUs argue that IPPs should not enjoy the same tax benefits as government-owned companies when it comes to property taxes. To address this, the EO states that a big portion of these taxes have been agreed upon and assumed by the National Power Corporation under certain contracts. The national government assures that it will cover these tax obligations on behalf of the power companies. The EO further states that closure and non-operation of power producers and defaulting on their taxes to the LGUs will cause substantial losses to the government, lead to more expensive power for the public, and result in power outages. To resolve the issue, the EO allows the president to reduce the property taxes that IPPs owe for the year 2023.
Senator Ramon Revilla Jr. issues a warning to the public, stating that the sale of registered SIM cards are most likely linked to scams and other crimes. The warning comes after the SIM registration period in the Philippines ended, deactivating unregistered SIM cards. Senator Revilla states that purchasing and selling registered SIM cards might be an attempt to avoid being traced in connection with criminal activities. The SIM Registration Act imposes penalties, including imprisonment of 6 months to 6 years and or a fine of 100,000 to 300,000 pesos for selling or transferring registered SIM cards without complying with the law. Police data shows a rise in SIM-based crimes in the first half of 2023 and may increase after the registration deadline. Senator Revilla emphasizes that both sellers and buyers will be held accountable for any crimes committed using the registered SIM cards.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, issues a strong denial in response to allegations of election rigging during the 2022 national and local elections. COMELEC Chairperson George Erwin Garcia addresses the concerns raised by former Information and Communications Technology Undersecretary Eliseo Rio Jr. Garcia debunked the issues in detail, starting with the transmission of election results from a private and similar IP address in certain areas of Metro Manila, Cavite, and Batangas during the previous polls. Garcia assures that all of these modems underwent necessary testing and their IP addresses did not affect the accuracy, legitimacy, or functionality of the transmission. Garcia also refutes allegations of a middleman interfering with the transmission of election results. He explains that if such interference had occurred, there would have been inconsistencies in the results.
The Department of Energy says that the development of nuclear energy in the country remains on President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s agenda. Vin Pascua for the details.
Energy Chief Rafael Lotilla says that a legal and regulatory framework must be approved first in order to prioritize the development of nuclear energy in the country. He notes that Congress is still considering its version of the legal and regulatory framework. Early this week, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. hinted at its support for the adoption of nuclear energy to add to the country's energy supply. Former President Rodrigo Duterte signed Executive Order 164 directing the adoption of a national position for a nuclear energy program and other purposes. Meanwhile, the energy chief points out that the department and other concerned government agencies have been assertive in finding possible locations where a new nuclear power plant can be built. The Energy Department also taps the National Economic Development Authority, or NEDA, to work towards getting the private sector to cooperate with nuclear development in the country. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Prices of vegetables and fish increase as Typhoon Doksuri exits the Philippine area of responsibility. Madeline Villar Moratilio tells us more.
As a result of Typhoon Doksuri onslaught in the northern provinces of Luzon, the Kamuning Market implements a 50 peso per kilogram markup on vegetables such as bell pepper, cabbage, carrots, tomatoes, and potatoes. Market vendors says most of these crops came from Baguio, a province severely affected by the typhoon. Meanwhile, the Department of Agriculture has yet to receive an update on Doksuri's damage to crops in the Cordillera region. According to the agency, Doksuri dealt at least 53.1 million in agriculture damage on rice and corn fields, livestock, and poultry in 4 regions of the country. The agency, however, notes that the impact is not fatal enough to affect the long-term supply and price increase in the market. DA reserved a 1 billion peso quick response fund allotted for the typhoon and the El Nino phenomenon. Madeline Villar Moratilio reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, report says that Typhoon Doksuri left 13 people dead and affected about 500,000 before exiting the country. Philippine Coast Guard confirms at least 26 individuals drowned after a boat capsizes off the coast of Binangonan, Rizal, leaving a total of at least 39 casualties. NDRRMC says around 17,000 locals from Regions 1, 2, 3, Mimaropa, and Region 6 were preemptively evacuated by officials amid anticipation of the storm. In addition, the Disaster Risk Council records infrastructure damages worth 2 million pesos left by Doksuri, damaging 6 roads, 6 bridges, 2 schools, 2 government facilities, and a private establishment. Meanwhile, Pagasa forecasts the tropical storm Kanun, spotted at east of eastern Visayas, is expected to enter the country's monitoring area.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is expected to visit the Philippines on July 30. The Presidential Communications Office announces that von der Leyen will stay in the Philippines from July 30 to August 1. Malacanang Palace claims it as the first official visit from highest-ranking member of the Commission after 60 years of diplomatic partnership. They added that President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is more than pleased to welcome the EU Commission President. President Marcos invited her during the ASEAN-EU Commemorative Summit in Brussels, Belgium last year. The palace hopes this official visit will establish closer ties between the Philippines and the EU Commission. Von der Leyen will also meet with other government officials from various business and civic sectors during her stay in the country.
China extends an offer to conduct joint military exercises with the Philippines. Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief Romeo Bronner says he will study the offer presented by China's ambassador in Manila. Bronner adds that such offers to establish relations between armies is one way to prevent war. The proposal comes amid heightened tensions between the two countries over China's perceived aggressive actions in the highly disputed West Philippine Sea.
Coming up, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversees a military parade for the 70th anniversary of the end of the Korean War. Coup leaders in Niger accuse France of defying their orders to close the country's borders. And Special Counsel Jack Smith brought forth additional charges against former United States President Donald Trump. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart.
Are you looking where to invest? Paano mag-invest sa real estate na hindi kailangan ng malaking puhunan? Even in death, there are opportunities, business at that. We are going to speak with executives from St. John Memorial Park and Manila North Green Park to give us a wealth of knowledge and insights into buying crypts for future use, as lasting tributes to our loved ones, or as investments.
Ang tao kasi basically gusto nilang mag-invest for the future.
Ang crypt is also considered real estate. However, ang difference, pwede mo siyang i-compare sa insurance.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
We now welcome you back to Mata ng Agila International. China's National Meteorological Center says Typhoon Doksuri made landfall in Fujian province. It adds that the rainfall is projected to reach up to 11 inches in some parts of the region. Meanwhile, local media advises local governments and transport authorities to take precaution as drainage systems and roads are expected to be affected by heavy rains brought by Typhoon Doksuri. Meanwhile, Taiwan's weather agency says the island is still experiencing heavy rains. However, it removed its highest rainfall warning. Local authorities also suspended classes near coastal areas due to persistent strong winds and rains.
China has granted Pakistan a 2-year rollover on a $2.4 billion loan, a move aimed at helping the country overcome one of its worst economic crises. Soaring inflation and crippling foreign debt led Pakistan to the brink of default before a pivotal $3 billion International Monetary Fund bailout was granted earlier this month. Finance Minister Ishak Dar said China's Exim Bank had rolled over for 2 years principal amounts on twin debts of $1.2 billion. Said debts were due in the fiscal years 2023 to 2024 and 2024 to 2025. China has already invested billions of dollars in Pakistan. The recent package is considered a lifeline for the country, which struggled to overcome the economic crisis when Pakistan and the IMF agreed to a new $3 billion bailout.
North Korea's leader treated Russia's defense minister to a show-and-tell session Thursday. Kim Jong-un gave Sergei Shoigu a look at his country's newest and most advanced weaponry. JC Yumo tells us more.
Chinese official also took part in the tour. The arsenal on display included nuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles and drones. Russia's Sergei Shoigu and the Chinese delegation are in the North Korea for the 70th anniversary of the end of the Korean War. The North Korea celebrates it as a victory day. Shoigu's visit is the first by a Russian defense minister since 1991, when the Soviet Union broke up. The visit comes amid accusations that Pyongyang is supplying the Russians with weapons for use in its war against Ukraine. JC Yumul for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversees a military parade featuring newly developed and produced unmanned reconnaissance aircraft and multi-purpose attack drones. The parade showcases Pyongyang's nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM, the solid-fuel Hwasong-18. Speaking at the event, North Korean Defense Minister Kang Sun-nam issued strong rhetoric against the United States, warning of North Korea's capability to retaliate if faced with a nuclear attack. High-ranking Russian and Chinese delegations are seen attending the festivities, Kim's first known foreign guest since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu reads a congratulatory speech from Russian President Vladimir Putin expressing gratitude to North Korea for its support during a special military operation in Ukraine. This raises concerns as Washington accuses Pyongyang of supplying weapons to Russia for its war effort in Ukraine. Both North Korea and Russia deny conducting any arms transactions. The parade aims to reinforce Kim Jong-un's ruling legitimacy and internal unity within North Korea and to assert North Korea's military readiness in dealing with potential strategic threats from the United States and its allies.
Work has already begun on new offices in Africa as Russian media outlets is set to open in the country. This after the announcement of Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Russia-Africa Economic and Humanitarian Forum in St. Petersburg on Thursday. Putin said that Russia and Africa should create a joint information space and that the objective and unbiased information on global events will be broadcast on the continent. According to the African Union of Broadcasting, it is very important for Africa to maintain the balance in covering events on the continent and that Russia is welcome in the country. While some Russian news outlets already have bureaus operating in Africa, they will now plan to expand its operations to broadcast to African audience.
The Russian army targets Ukrainian airfields, control centers, and storage facilities for weapons supplied by Western allies to Kyiv. Catherine Ortula has the details.
These attacks include assembly shops and storage sites for naval drones, missiles, and military equipment received from European countries and the United States. Despite facing significant challenges, the Ukrainian army recaptures the village of Staromayorsk in the Donetsk region from Russian forces. Russian President Vladimir Putin claims that more than 200 people were killed during an attack in the Zaporizhzhia, asserting that the losses came mostly from Ukraine. Russia launches another missile attack on the port infrastructure in Ukraine's Odessa region. Odessa's ports have been repeatedly targeted by Russian attacks following Moscow's withdrawal from the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Ukrainian army spokeswoman Natalia Gumenyuk says that Kiev lacks the means to defend itself against strikes on its grain infrastructure carried out by Russia.
Те, що зараз відбувається, фактично всі порти продовжують перебувати в стані заблокований. Жодне судно не може виходити.
With the Ukrainian ports blocked, President Putin now controls the grain trade, leading to an offer of free grain to 6 African countries during a summit with leaders from the continent. The summit is seen as a test of Putin's support in Africa, aiming to strengthen ties between Russia and African nations.
И, конечно, наша страна продолжит вносить реальный вклад в урегулирование текущих кризисов и предотвращение появления новых очагов напряженности на континенте. В борьбу с терроризмом и экстремизмом, с пандемиями и голодом, в решении вопросов экологической, продовольственной и информационной безопасности.
The British presidency of the UN Security Council turned down Russia's request to have a briefer of their choosing addressing the Ukraine issue.
We really are very much shocked by the behavior of the British presidency, and that's why we decided to protest and not to speak at the next meeting, which is starting right now.
Russian Deputy Representative to the UN, Dmitry Polyansky, sits through the meeting in silence to show displeasure toward the issue. Russia announces plans to organize a competition for members of the BRICS alliance, inviting athletes from Brazil, India, China, and South Africa to participate in the event. Catherine Ertula for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky submitted a proposal to the parliament to extend martial law and general mobilization for another 90 days. Ukraine's parliament previously extended martial law and mobilization from May until August 18. Lawmaker Yaroslav Zelensnyak said that the parliament plans to support Zelensky's proposal and extend the measures until November 15, 2023. With the proposal, it will also cancel the parliamentary election scheduled for October. President Zelensky first declared martial law on February 24, 2022. Under martial law, Ukrainian men between the ages of 18 and 60, with some exceptions, are not allowed to leave the country because they may be called up for military service.
The United Kingdom Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has warned Russia that any action preventing grain exports from Ukraine would not go unpunished. From London, England, Margaret Lou Gomez has the details.
Any efforts by Russia to prevent grain from leaving Ukraine would be completely unacceptable. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said Tuesday, as his foreign minister warned that civilian ships in the Black Sea could be targeted.
Sunak announced that he had talked to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and made it clear that any Russian attempt to stop grain leaving Ukraine is completely unacceptable. His foreign minister, James Cleverly, earlier tweeted that the UK was concerned Russia was planning to disrupt grain exports. The UK believes that Russia may escalate its campaign to destroy Ukraine's food exports by targeting civilian ships in the Black Sea. Russia should stop holding global food supplies hostage and return to the deal, Cleverly said. Sunak and Zelensky also discussed recent developments on the battlefield and the continued progress by Ukrainian forces despite the challenging conditions, according to a readout from Sunak's office. Sunak told the Ukrainian leader that the UK was working closely with Turkey on restoring the grain deal. This month, Russia scrapped a grain export deal with Ukraine and has been pounding the country's Black Sea port areas, in particular Odessa and some of its historic buildings. The UK's ambassador to the UN, Barbara Woodward, told reporters Tuesday that the Security Council would meet on Wednesday to discuss Russia's escalatory attacks on Odessa and their attempt to weaponize global food supplies.
This is Margaret Lou Gomez reporting from London, United Kingdom for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coup leaders in Niger accuse France of defying their orders to close the country's borders by landing a military plane at Niamey International Airport. They issue a statement demanding that measures taken by the junta be strictly upheld.
Malgré les injonctions du CNSP, conformément au communiqué numéro 3 du 26 juillet 2023, relatif à la fermeture des frontières aériennes et terrestres, il a été constaté que le partenaire français a passé outre pour faire atterrir un avion militaire de type A400M à l'aéroport international de Niamey ce matin à 6h30. Le CNSP rappelle une fois pour toutes au respect strict des dispositions du communiqué numéro 3.
Nigerian President Mohamed Bazoum, after speaking with United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken, reassures the public that the hard-won gains of democracy should be safeguarded. President Bazoum is reportedly in good health.
Les forces étrangères qui sont chez nous, les bases étrangères, les personnes qui doivent quitter chez nous, le Niger seul. Notre armée est une armée de référence qui a fait la fierté du Niger à la première guerre du Golfe, qui a fait la fierté du Niger à la première rébellion, la deuxième rébellion. Et dans la sous-région, partout, nous sommes une fierté. Cette armée, elle est une fierté.
Supporters of the coup are calling for the removal of foreign bases stationed in Niger. The U.S. Department of State denounces the coup and calls for the immediate release of President Bazoum.
At this time, we understand that President Bazoum is detained in his residence. We call for the immediate release of President Bazoum and for the respect of the rule of law and public safety.
The remains of at least 11 complete bodies and dozens of various body parts were recovered from a major prison in Ecuador after days of deadly prison riots. The remains were collected at the Literal Penitentiary in Guayaquil, where violence first erupted. According to the Attorney General's office, 31 people have been declared dead. However, the National Forensic Office cautions the public that the true death toll has yet to be determined as the body parts have not been identified. Ecuador's prison system has long been the main source of violence in the country, with hundreds of inmates killed in recent years as members of competing gangs often clash for supremacy within the walls of prison facilities.
Ante la violencia no cabe ningún tipo de división, sino la más sólida y férrea unidad. Por eso,
security forces have often struggled to confront the gangs inside overcrowded prisons, where inmates often take control of branches of the penitentiaries and run criminal networks from behind bars. Ecuadorian President Guillermo Lasso has also signed a decree declaring a state of emergency across the country's entire penitentiary system for the next 60 days.
United States Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin III visits Papua New Guinea for a follow-up meeting with Prime Minister James Marape. The meeting is about the Defense Cooperation Agreement and the Shipwrighter Agreement between the two countries. Cortaleza Quinola tells us more.
The bilateral meeting continues to discuss the security of Papua New Guinea's sovereignty, as well as its commitment to protect a free and peaceful Indo-Pacific region. Papua New Guinea views the United States as a key partner in enhancing and diversifying trade and economic relations. Prime Minister James Marape is inviting the United States to pursue its interest in the region from a geopolitical and geostrategic context. He urges the United States to adjust its lens so that it can truly understand the needs of the region.
Eko Hortaleza Quinola, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Special Counsel Jack Smith brought forth additional charges against former United States President Donald Trump. The additional charges are for the case of the alleged mishandling of classified documents during Trump's tenure in the White House. Prosecutors updated the document indicting an additional employee in the case. Carlos de Oliveira now joins Walt Nauta on the stand as de Oliveira attempted to delete security camera footage at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort after the Justice Department issued a subpoena for the evidence. The indictment states that de Oliveira told Mar-a-Lago's director of IT that the boss wanted the server deleted. Meanwhile, Trump, who is already facing 37 criminal charges, is now charged with one additional count of willful retention of national defense information and 2 additional counts of obstruction and conspiracy to commit obstruction. Trump was charged with willfully retaining a top-secret document about possible Iran attack plans, which he discussed with biographers during a taped meeting at Bedminster, New Jersey. New charges were also filed against Trump's aide Nauta for lying to a federal agent about moving boxes containing classified documents.
The White House rules out the possibility of Joe Biden using his presidential authority to pardon his son, Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is set to plead guilty to misdemeanor tax and gun charges. President Biden has given no indication that he planned to pardon Hunter Biden. Former President Donald Trump issued pardons and commutations to multiple political allies, including Stephen Bannon and Roger Stone. A plea deal in Hunter Biden's criminal case unraveled in Delaware federal court after a judge raised concerns about the terms of the agreement that would give him unilateral immunity from any other criminal charges. Hunter Biden entered Wednesday's court hearing with an agreement with prosecutors to plead guilty to 2 tax charges and avoid prosecution on a gun charge in the criminal case. The Trump-appointed U.S. District Judge Mary Ellen Oreca would not accept the agreement, raising concerns with its terms and telling both sides she would not be a rubber stamp. The hearing ended with Hunter Biden pleading not guilty to 2 misdemeanor charges for failing to pay his taxes when he received more than $1.5 million each year.
Nothing has changed on this. And so could ask me a million different ways on this question. Nothing has changed.
Hunter Biden is expected to reverse his plea if his lawyers reach an agreement with prosecutors that meets the judge's satisfaction. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was quick to dispel any rumors on a possibility of it happening anytime soon.
Hunter Biden is a private citizen, and this was a personal matter for him. As we have said, the President, the First Lady, they love their son, and they support him as he continues to rebuild his life. This case was handled independently, as all of you know, by the Justice Department under the leadership of a prosecutor appointed by the former president, President Trump.
Up next, Filipino-Canadian Rechy Valdez named to be a part of Justin Trudeau's cabinet. A man who shot and killed a custody sergeant in the UK has been handed a rare sentence of life imprisonment. And the UN says that the Earth has moved into an era of global boiling. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break. Don't go away.
This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders.
Kamusta na nga ba ang karir ni Juan de la Cruz? Ano-ano nga ba ang career goals natin sa panahon ngayon?
I believe also na what's meant to happen to us will happen. So parang yung pagbiging broadcaster, hindi ko talaga siya pinlano.
I took fashion design. Sorry to say, but I quit.
Oh.
I quit kasi gusto ko talaga mag-abroad at magtrabaho. Litong-lito talaga yung yung mind ko.
Right now, mahirap bigyan ng direksyon ng bata pagdating sa career path. Dahil in the next 5 to 10 years, makakakita tayo ng mga career na hindi pa natin nakikita.
Ilan nga ba sa ating mga Pilipino ang nakakamit ang kanilang mga pangarap na trabaho? Mag-reality check tayo.
A new UNESCO report has raised concerns about the excessive use of smartphones, calling for the gadgets to be banned in schools worldwide. UNESCO, the UN's Education, Science and Culture Agency, said there was evidence that excessive mobile phone use was linked to reduced educational performance and that high levels of screen time had a negative effect on children's emotional stability. According to its 2023 Global Education Monitoring Report, digital technology has changed but not transformed education. The report also urges countries to set their own standards for the way technology is used in education. Although technology could potentially open up opportunities for learning, the benefits were unequally spread, with many poor people from around the world effectively excluded. UNESCO, meanwhile, added that several countries are banning the use of mobile telephones or other technology in schools. Based on its analysis, UNESCO estimated 1 in 4 countries had banned smartphones in schools, either through law or guidance. These included France, which introduced its policy in 2018, and the Netherlands, which will bring in restrictions from 2024.
In the U.S., clips capturing panic buying scenes in a grocery store emerged after India announced an export ban on the Asian staple. In videos widely shared on social media, people could be seen with their grocery carts just full of rice bags. People were also seen climbing up the grocery store shelves to reach for rice bags. The announcement of the ban on rice exports by the Indian government has caused a frenzy among non-resident Indians. Last week, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi banned the export of non-basmati white rice to stabilize domestic prices ahead of key national elections next year following difficult harvests.
Filipino-Canadian Rechi Valdez has been named as Small Business Minister in Justin Trudeau's cabinet. This after the Canadian Prime Minister appointed Valdez and making her the first Filipino woman to become a part of the Canadian cabinet. Valdez is an entrepreneur, a former corporate banker, and a baker who founded a Filipino fusion line of pastries stocked in 2 national Asian grocery chains in neighboring Toronto. In 2021, Valdez became the first Filipino woman to be elected as a member of parliament for Mississauga, Streetsville in Canada, where her advocacies included fighting climate change, investing in women entrepreneurs, advancing pay equity legislation, healthcare investment, and supporting first-time home buyers and small business owners.
European Union-backed reinforcements were sent to hundreds of firefighters struggling to extinguish wildfires in Greece. Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said that the following days of wildfires caused numerous deaths and casualties. He added that the country mourned 6 citizens and 2 aircraft pilots. The police reported 5 dead bodies recovered from fire-stricken areas. Officials stated that more than 600 wildfires have occurred in Greece since July 13. The Civil Protection Ministry warned the public of the extreme danger caused by fire in the Greek regions. They ordered evacuations after fires caused an explosion in an ammunition house at the port city of Volos, central Greece. Officials declared a state of emergency for 10,000 of residents and tourists, including 20,000 people on the island of Rhodes.
In a disturbing turn of events, a 60-year-old New York City taxi driver was viciously beaten by a group of 5 people on a busy Midtown Manhattan street. The horrific footage shows 3 women and 2 men repeatedly striking the senior citizen. The man was seen attempting to avoid the kicks and punches and eventually knocked down along the side of his cab. New York police said the victim and the group got into an argument before the incident. 2 suspects were arrested at the scene and subsequently charged with assault and criminal mischief for the damages caused to the 60-year-old and his cab. An ambulance later took the victim to New York University Hospital and is in stable condition. The New York City Taxi and Limousine Commission condemned the assault, stating, "Our city's hardworking drivers brave the streets every day to get us where we need to go, and violence against them is totally unacceptable and illegal."
A man who shot and killed a custody sergeant in a British police station while handcuffed will spend the rest of his life in prison after being sentenced on Thursday. From London, England, Catherine Messina tells us more.
Zoisa, 26, was convicted last month of murdering Matt Ratana, a 54-year-old Metropolitan Police officer in a South London custody centre in September 2020.
It was the first fatal shooting of a UK police officer since 2012. Passing sentence at Northampton Crown Court in central England, Judge Jeremy Johnson handed De Zoysa a rare whole-life sentence. As of December 2022, there were only 66 prisoners in England and Wales serving whole-life orders, which are reserved for the most serious murder convictions. The judge noted during the sentencing that the starting point for killing a police officer is a whole-life order. He added De Zoysa's actions after he was stopped by the police and shortly before he shot Ratana showed the degree of planning and premeditation. Ratana, who joined the Met in 1991 and was nearing retirement, was hit by 3 bullets fired from an antique handgun at Croydon Custody Centre and later died in hospital. De Zoysa, who has autism and had claimed diminished responsibility at trial, had concealed the weapon during and after his arrest just prior to the shooting. The jury in his trial decided he pulled the trigger deliberately while handcuffed and had not suffered an autistic episode. De Zoysa fired the 4th bullet, which hit an artery in his own neck, causing brain damage, and he now uses a wheelchair. The judge said he had taken into account medical evidence regarding De Zoysa's condition, but ultimately decided they were insufficient mitigating factors for a lesser term. Johnson praised Ratana for devoting his life to public service and putting himself in the way of danger to protect the public. Following the sentencing, Metropolitan Police Commissioner Mark Rowley also paid tribute to the murdered officer and his colleagues, saying that he was an outstanding officer who brought joy to his work, treating everyone with respect, compassion and good humour.
This is Catherine Messina from London, United Kingdom for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
At least 8 people have died in a series of explosions at a grain silo in southern Brazil. 11 others have been injured in the blast, which happened Wednesday in the municipality of Palotina. With 1 worker still missing, rescue workers are using dogs to help them locate that person believed to be trapped under a pile of grain. 7 of the dead are foreign workers, mostly Haitians. The cause of the blast still remains unknown. A fire department official says an explosion in one of the silos triggered a second and then a third blast. Grain dust particles are highly combustible and can cause fires or explosions.
In Toronto, 5 passengers have been injured after a train derailed. Yolanda Aspiras has the details.
A train in Toronto got derailed Monday night, sending 5 people to hospital with minor injuries. The derailment happened when the southbound train got separated from the rest of a Line 3 Scarborough Archie train near Kennedy and Ellesmere Roads. Approximately 45 passengers were aboard the train car, and they were tossed around inside the car, causing minor injuries. While the investigation as to the reason of the derailment is being conducted, the Scarborough Archie line will be replaced with shuttle buses for the time being. The Scarborough Archie line is set to be decommissioned and cease its operations on November 19 of this year. The SRT opened in 1985 and is considered 10 years past its designed life and suffers from overheating in the summer and interruptions in the winter. TTC CEO Rick Leary has released a statement apologizing to everyone impacted by the incident and reassures everyone that safety is their paramount concern. In Toronto, Ontario, Yolanda Aspiras for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
4 people have died in a helicopter crash on Thursday in Siberia. 10 others suffered injuries when the chopper went down. Arlene Ocampo reports.
Some of the injured are reported to be in serious condition. Siberian authorities say the chopper caught fire after it hit power lines while landing. Initially, officials reported 6 people had died, believing 2 of the dead to be under the wreckage. But it turned out they walked away from the crash and made it to the hospital on their own. The helicopter belonged to a private company. It had been carrying a group of tourists. An investigation is underway. Aircraft accidents are frequent in remote parts of Russia. They are often caused by bad weather, human error, or technical issues. Arlene Ocampo for Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Missing teen Alicia Navarro has resurfaced in a small town in northern Montana after vanishing for 4 years. Police Information Officer Jose Santiago announced that the teen girl returned safe, healthy, and happy to her home in Glendale, U.S. Navarro was reunited with her family after identifying herself with the local police department. They verified her identity through interviews and a confirmation from the Navarro family. The mother of Alicia, Jessica Nunez, reached out to private investigative agencies, used social media, put up billboards, and appeared on television programs to find her daughter for years. Director of Project 25, Kathleen Wynn, says that Navarro had plans at first to return home after leaving a note, clothes, and some of her favorite things.
Alicia Navarro has been located. She is, by all accounts, safe. She is, by all accounts, healthy. And she is, by all accounts, happy. She was located in a very small town in Montana near the Canadian border. We can tell you that she went to a local police department in that area. She identified herself as Alicia Navarro, and at that point, our officers went into investigation mode. We conducted several types of interviews, and not only through those interviews, but through the help of Alicia's family themselves, we are confident that the person that we are talking with and are dealing with is indeed Alicia Navarro.
As experts confirm that July is on track to be the hottest month in recorded history, United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres warned the Earth has moved into an era of global boiling. Searing heat intensified by global warming has affected tens of millions of people in parts of Europe, Asia, and North America this month, combining with fierce wildfires that have scorched across the globe. Driven by the burning of fossil fuels, about 1.2 degrees Celsius of global warming since the late 1800s has made heat waves hotter, longer, and more frequent, as well as intensifying other weather extremes like storms and floods. Scientists say the world will need to adapt to the heat and other impacts already caused by emissions, and that carbon pollution must be stopped this decade to avoid worse in the future. This week, scientists from the World Weather Attribution Group found that the heat waves in parts of Europe and North America would have been almost impossible without climate change.
For vast parts of North America, Asia, Africa, and Europe, it's a cruel summer. For the entire planet, it is a disaster. And for scientists, it is unequivocal. Humans are to blame. All this is entirely consistent with predictions and repeated warnings. The only surprise is the speed of the change. Climate change is here, it is terrifying, and it is just the beginning. Humanity has unleashed destruction. This must not inspire despair, but action. We can still stop the worst, but to do so, we must turn a year of burning heat into a year of burning ambition and accelerate climate action now.
Coming right up. Chinese youths are turning to alternative forms of income. China launches new remote sensing satellites into orbit. And Bronny James has been discharged from the hospital after suffering from sudden cardiac arrest. Catch more news in business, tech, sports, and entertainment when we return.
siya! Scholar ng bayan kaya to. Mahilig siyang magbasa ng libro. He likes to write on his journal and paint too. Para malaman kung sino siya, abangan nyo dito lang sa Net 25.
Net 25, the official carrying station of Palarong Pambansa 2023, Marikina.
Youth unemployment has become a serious challenge for China as the country's jobless rate is dramatically increasing. Julian Bunag has the details.
In recent months, the hashtag full-time daughter and full-time son have been trending on Chinese social media platforms. On Xiaohongshu, the country's most popular lifestyle sharing platform among the youth, has over 40,000 posts under the hashtag full-time sons and daughters and attracting millions of views. The full-time sons and daughters refer to adult children who, due to unemployment, are hired by their parents to do housework and other tasks. The staggering number of young Chinese people identifying as such on social media say they're going back home because they simply can't get work. Youth unemployment has become a serious problem in China, the world's second largest economy. The challenge increased especially after 3 years of zero COVID restrictions, which affected the country's growth. The National Bureau of Statistics reported on Monday that China's jobless rate among people ages 16 to 24 years old was a record 21.3% in June. But for Zhang Dandan, an associate professor at Peking University, the number could be as high as 45.5% in March. In an opinion piece that he wrote last week for news outlet Cakesin, he said that 16 million young people retreating at home and relying on their parents and not actively looking for work would make this higher percentage the true unemployment rate for the youth. Youth unemployment is just one of China's burdens, joining headwinds such as struggling property and the weak domestic consumption. Julian Bunag for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
China launches new remote sensing satellites into orbit from the Xichang Satellite Launch Center. China's Long March 2D rocket is tasked to deliver the 3 satellites of the Yaogan 36 family. Remote sensing satellites are used to detect and provide a global perspective about Earth systems. The launch marks the 480th flight of the Long March carrier rocket series.
Bronny James, the 18-year-old son of NBA superstar LeBron James, has been released from the hospital after being treated for a sudden cardiac arrest. Bronny James suffered a cardiac arrest during practice at the University of Southern California on Monday, where he was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center fully conscious, neurologically intact and stable. According to the American Heart Association, cardiac arrest occurs when electrical disturbances cause the heart to suddenly stop beating. Sudden cardiac arrest, meanwhile, among young athletes is rare but not unheard of. A 2011 study that examined NCAA student-athletes' sudden deaths between 2004 and 2008 found cardiovascular-related sudden death was the leading cause of death in 45 cases, or about 9 each year. On Thursday, LeBron James tweeted about his son for the first time since the practice incident, thanking well-wishers for sending his family love and prayers. Randy Meisner, a founding member of the Eagles, has died. The bassist and singer who co-wrote and sang Take It to the Limit was 77. Bernadette Manuel tells us more.
Randy Meisner, the retired singer and co-founding member of the American rock band The Eagles, died Wednesday night on July 26 in Los Angeles. He was 77. According to a statement shared by the band, Meisner died due to complications from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or COPD. Meisner, along with bandmates Glenn Frey, Don Henley, and Bernie Leadon, formed the Eagles in 1971. He was called by former bandmate Don Felder the sweetest man in the music business and was a wonderful Midwestern guy with a great heart and a loving soul. Many people who met and worked with Meisner remarked on his kindness, friendliness, and for being quiet. His shyness, however, may have caused him difficulties as a performer. Henley described Meisner to author Mark Elliott as extremely uncomfortable with so-called superstardom. Meisner played bass and sang on several of the Eagles' most beloved albums, including Eagles, Desperado, On the Border, One of These Nights, and Hotel California. Meisner co-wrote the band's hit song Take It to the Limit, which he also sang. Bernadette Manuel for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In China, a dance group holds aerobics gatherings to maintain public health in the country's fast-aging society. Dubbed as Jiamusi Happy Dancing, hundreds of dancers twirl in unison in China's public squares. According to the group's founder, Yu Ji-cheng, the exercises involve moves focusing on the waist, abdomen, shoulder, and hips.
我锻炼，我也不知道能跟着这些人，我是无意识变潮，那就按照中国话说，无心插柳柳成荫。 没想到大伙跟着我做，怎么办？那就走下去。一开始随意，最后人太多了，由随意变为有拍节，有时间。
Yu designed the dance routine in 2008 and offers lessons in Jiamusi daily, with up to 500 participants joining the group sessions. Data shows that Beijing facing a looming demographic crisis as hundreds of millions of people move into their twilight years in the next few decades. Okay, dance, workout over the weekend. I'll keep that in mind. And to end the week, here's a quote from Irish singer and musician Sinead O'Connor. May she rest in peace. If there's one way to save someone, it's by letting them know you love them. If there's one way to save yourself, it's by imagining the eyes of the people who love you.
That is the perfect quote for this weekend. Something really to think about. Spend that time with your family and friends. Tell them you love them. And also remember that the love of your family and friends triumphs any negativity you're going through.
And if at all you are stingy about giving good remarks and affirming loved ones, you better thinking that they do the same for you too.
Yeah, so take advantage of that opportunity. Happy weekend, everybody.
Happy weekend, everybody.
That's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.